Chapter 5. Starting off, a battle rages on as Jeok Chan relentlessly attacks the golden armored dragon with Tibo. It is a deadly combination of taekwondo and boxing, wielding a sword in hand. However, the golden armored dragon appears passive, refusing to counter the strikes. Dorothy, watching the intense combat, cannot help but wonder why the golden armored dragon is not fighting back. Jeok Chan, filled with pride, laughs triumphantly, believing his expectations are being proven correct. He anticipated that the golden armored dragon would be significantly weakened in its transformed humanoid form. With an attacking opportunity before them, Jeok Chan urges everyone to keep striking, not giving the golden armored dragon a moment to recover. Doubtful of his own powers, the golden armored dragon questions the difference between his current state and when he was a dragon on the 7th floor of the demon castle. He feels a sense of liberation as his actions were no longer dictated by a predetermined response to human attacks. But the golden armored dragon's unexpected resilience. A girl from the Crimson Blood clan points out that their attacks seem ineffective. Jeok Chan acknowledges that the golden armored dragon wouldn't be an easy target and criticizes their previous approach, urging his Crimson Blood group to intensify their assault. Despite the golden armored dragon's initial struggle, he manages to fend off the attackers with a simple swing, displaying his true strength as a raid boss. Dorothy, relieved by the turn of events, wonders if the golden armored dragon would still be defeated. Jeok Chan confronts the golden armored dragon, mentioning Cho-sik, a basic stance formed by combining more than 2 actions. He demonstrates it with a blazing flame barrier that almost shook the ground, but the golden armored dragon critiques the execution, stating it lacks flow and smoothness similar to his past self. As the battle intensifies, the golden armored dragon effortlessly counters Jeok Chan's attacks, leaving him shocked and agitated. The golden armored dragon cannot comprehend how his strong skills are being hindered. He manages to ruin Jeok Chan's flaming sword, causing the Crimson Blood clan leader to express disbelief as he just bought it. Then with a bone-crushing punch, the golden armored dragon knocks out Jeok Chan, leaving him senseless and his pride totally annihilated. Wondering about the difference between his own fighting style and Cho-sik, the golden armored dragon concludes that his movements were unrefined and lacked finesse compared to the Cho-sik techniques of his opponent. Jeok Chan's allies from the Crimson Blood clan are shocked by the golden armored dragon's display of strength, even without using Cho-sik. Intrigued, the golden armored dragon encourages them to attack him more, as he wants to study their martial arts and learn about Cho-sik. The battle is settled, and the golden armored dragon seeks to uncover the secrets of this advanced technique. Chapter 6. The golden armored dragon observes the aftermath of the battle, having killed almost every enemy but feeling unsatisfied with the results. Puzzled by the state in which his opponents were left encased in a dark aura, he finds it strangely fascinating. Dorothy finds the golden armored dragon's power awe-inspiring as well. She begins to feel safe in his presence, soundly knowing that he can take down anyone who tries to attack them. That girl from the Crimson Blood clan, agitated with her clan's seeming defeat, comes all the way to Dorothy to express how she dislikes her from the very beginning and vows to seek revenge in the future. She declares that Dorothy and the golden armored dragon will be placed on Crimson's kill list from that moment onwards. Dorothy mentions that she would be recalling back to their base, while tauntingly informing the girl that she would never see her again. The girl is then angered more by Dorothy when she repeatedly refers to her leader, Jeok Chan, as Appa. Then the golden armored dragon interrupts their argument as Dorothy's savior, taunting the girl and telling her to look forward to their future encounters. As Dorothy and the golden armored dragon look over the empty city together, Dorothy comments on how cheap his sword is and proposes that he buys one over a rare grade. However, the golden armored dragon has his full attention on the mysteries of Cho-sik. Dorothy is quite offended. Then in extreme curiosity, the golden armored dragon attempts to thrust his sword into the ground but fails to activate his desired powers. Dorothy dashes away all of a sudden, leaving the golden armored dragon wondering. He tries to follow Dorothy only to catch her lying asleep in her bed already. Back in his dwelling place, the golden armored dragon cannot find an answer to Dorothy's disappearance, so he just decides to wait for her return. Meanwhile, the Crimson Blood clan allies are depressed after the intense battle with the golden armored dragon, where a lot of them are eliminated. Jeok Chan, their competitive leader who has been in a foul mood since then, hates to see his allies in depression and demands all of them gather outside. After a while, Jeok Chan receives news of an abnormal phenomenon in the demon castle, causing concern among the clans. He contemplates whether the incident is a bug or a hidden quest, realizing that solving it can give his clan a significant advantage. But more than anything, Jeok Chan worries about Dorothy. who interfered with their quest earlier, seeing her as an obstacle to his plans for the Crimson Blood clan's sought-after triumph. Suddenly, an unknown flying figure named Yuan Jile appears outside the window of Jeok Woon-chan's office, addressing the Crimson Blood clan leader and expressing his utmost dedication to asking him something in person. Chapter 7. Dorothy wakes up in her real-world city apartment and feels relieved to finally be back in the real world. She expresses her frustration with her current situation, wishing for a life without constipation. Remembering the rubbish, she decides to go out to the city to throw it away. But then, she stumbles upon a couple enjoying the beautiful weather. Irritated by their happiness, Dorothy quickly returns to her apartment, considering the outside world dangerous. Inside her messy apartment, Dorothy realizes that she needs to make some changes in herself. She thinks about finding a boyfriend and using someone specific to improve her life. Determined to seize an opportunity, Dorothy logs back into the virtual world. To her surprise, the golden armored dragon is in her bed. Panicking that something bad could have happened, Dorothy scolds him, but the golden armored dragon explains that he is only there because she asked him to stay put. Dorothy just disregards the situation, reminding herself that he is just an NPC after all. Once Dorothy calms down, the golden armored dragon seriously asks for an explanation as to why she suddenly logged out while appearing as a virtual image. Embarrassed, Dorothy struggles to reveal the truth, but eventually gives way and explains her bathroom emergency. The golden armored dragon glares at her, insisting she fulfills her duty as a guide. Dorothy reluctantly admits that people like her are called Yongins or dragon humans and are originally from a different world called the real world. The golden armored dragon finds it intriguing, as it suggests that Murim, the world of martial arts where they currently exist, might not be the real world. At the same time, Jeok Woon-chan embraces his girls under a blooming sakura tree. Out of nowhere, Master Man-bak appears. Master Man-bak expresses his disappointment in Jeok Woon-chan's weakness and initiates an overwhelming attack on his fan, Jan Hwan Sang-in. While Jeok Woon-chan is completely under his master's powers, Master Man-bak questions his loyalty. Jeok Woon-chan pledges to be his loyal follower, earning the name Master Man-bak's hunting dog one, which he embraces well. Chapter 8. The solemn conversation between Dorothy and the golden armored dragon continues, and he wonders about the nature of reality and the purpose of their existence. Dorothy sips on a hot drink and explains that the world the dragons lived in is a game created by the Yongins for their entertainment. She revealed that the real world, where the Yongins reside, is the true origin, and the dragons are virtual beings designed by the Yongins that can only exist and function within the confines of the game. The golden armored dragon inquires further about the process of its creation. Dorothy admits not having all the details but explains that the Yongins created the world simply because they could. As they continue their discussion, the golden armored dragon follows up his curiosity about Cho-sik and why he cannot make use of it like the Yongins. Dorothy opens a monitor and searches for information about Cho-sik on the web. Dorothy explains that Cho-sik refers to the smallest unit of martial arts and that there are different gongbus that can be used in combat. She clarifies that Murim doesn't have traditional job classes like those found in fantasy games. Instead, the focus is on becoming well-rounded individuals rather than mastering a specific field. Dorothy cautions that practicing certain mugongs simultaneously can lead to negative side effects called Juhwaipmo. The golden armored dragon asks how to learn mugong, and Dorothy explains that the simplest way was to find a master who would teach it. Later, they magically transfer to another location through Yongmok. The golden armored dragon is amazed at the golden environment around them. Dorothy explains that Yongmok is a form of transportation that doesn't exactly fit the world's concept, but is effective for long-range travel. The golden armored dragon asks if they could find a master and learn Gongbu through Yongmok, to which Dorothy agrees but expresses concern about its potential effects on him. However, the golden armored dragon reassures Dorothy, mentioning his previous experience with the recall amulet. Dorothy then urges the golden armored dragon to wear a disguise to avoid attracting attention. She offers him a set of black clothes with golden, pointed shoulder armor and some red ornaments. Surprisingly, the golden armored dragon transforms his appearance to match the outfit, shocking Dorothy. Afterward, they decide on a fake name for the golden armored dragon, Geum Ryong. With their preparations complete, Dorothy and Geum Ryong set off in search of a Mugong master, hand in hand, ready for their journey ahead. Chapter 9. Surrounded by dead bodies in a narrow room, Jeok Woon-chan screams. He seems to have his mind left in disarray. Meanwhile, Dorothy and Geum Ryong have successfully been transported to a bustling and lively city. Various voices invite them with offers of warm noodles, sweet and sour tanghulu, and the self-proclaimed best liquor in the world, Gongbu Ganju. Dorothy, irritated by the crowd and noise, expresses her annoyance. She is pushed and smacked in the midst of the chaos, venting her frustration at the people around her. In the commotion, she accidentally pushes a random kid, prompting her to call for help in rescuing the fallen child. It takes Dorothy's angriest outcry before the crowd moves and makes way. Believing at first she has been that intimidating to people, Dorothy realizes it is not due to her, but rather Geum Ryong's appearance with fierce, burning red eyes that scares the people off. After helping the fallen kid, she immediately ran away after thanking Dorothy. A while later, Dorothy and Geum Ryong head to an inn to rest. Dorothy is frustrated at the high cost of the room until she notices her money has disappeared out of nowhere. After minutes of recalling, she realizes the kid she helped must have stolen it. Dorothy erupts in anger, swearing to catch the thief. For a night, Dorothy and Geum Ryong share a room. While Dorothy is still ranting angrily about how badly she wants to teach the bastard kid a hard lesson, Geum Ryong takes it as an opportunity to learn about Tudo, the ability to steal items from inside pouches and more of the worldly techniques. When Dorothy is about to go to sleep, she tells Geum Ryong that she means to log out temporarily. She also explains that it is a must for youngins like her to return to the real world at least once every 4 days. Dorothy shows Geum Ryong the time difference between their world and reality, but Geum Ryong sighs as he perceives one day to be too short. Dorothy pleads with Geum Ryong to wait for her while she returns to the real world to rest, to which Geum Ryong agrees. After Dorothy logs out, Geum Ryong tries to pass the time in the room but finds himself struggling with boredom. He starts a debate in his mind about whether to leave the room or not, knowing that Dorothy asked him to stay put. Eventually, upon his deep pondering, he justifies that staying inside the inn technically doesn't violate her request, and so he ventures into the hallway thinking about spending time in the bar on the first floor. Before we continue, make sure to smash that like button so we'll know to keep making videos like this one. Chapter 10. Geum Ryong, feeling a bit burdened by regret, sits alone at the bar with a drink in hand. He has come to get rid of his worries, but it is proving challenging. Frustration grows within him. A random man in the bar notices this sudden change and is visibly startled. Geum Ryong seems lost in thoughts and emotions, and his behavior is strange, similar to what he saw others do on the street before. However, Geum Ryong's attention was soon drawn to an elderly man who appeared unaffected by his mood. Surprised by this, Geum Ryong cannot help but ask about the man's name. The old man, sensing something unique about him, comments that he doesn't seem like a typical person but has a remarkable presence. Then Geum Ryong, being a Chosik enthusiast, asks if the man is doing a certain type of Chosik. Unexpectedly, the old man corrects him, saying he should be asking about the method he used instead. The old man describes the technique as a way of grabbing an object with 2 fingers, but he uses 3, earning the nickname Tri-Dragon Liquor. Intrigued, Geum Ryong asks the man to become his teacher and teach him the art of Gong-bu. The old man, internally contemplating this unexpected encounter with someone outside the usual circles, decides to test Geum Ryong. He refuses initially, questioning Geum Ryong's manners, but eventually proposes a condition. Geum Ryong would have to receive 3 techniques from him to become his disciple. Geum Ryong readily agrees to the condition, offering 3 gold coins. The old man chuckles, saying it would take much more than that to become his disciple. He finally introduces himself as Samhwa of Gebang and explains the rule he has followed his whole life. As curious onlookers observe the interaction, they speculate about the significance of Gebang and the potential for someone to become an NPC's master. Outside the bar, Samhwa begins his first technique, attempting to blast Geum Ryong with a powerful attack. To his surprise, Geum Ryong, who looked delicate at first, manages to withstand it with an amazing Mugong effect. Undisturbed, Samhwa instructs Geum Ryong to receive the second technique. Meanwhile, amidst the test, Geum Ryong feels a connection to a dragon, sensing a presence that is both visible and soft. As Samhwa unleashes his second technique, Geum Ryong successfully resists again with a heavy blow, prompting Samhwa to acknowledge his strength, and so he changes his behavior. The old man then considers this encounter as a test for himself rather than Geum Ryong. With one final test remaining, Samhwa prepares for the third and ultimate technique, eager to see what Geum Ryong is truly capable of. Chapter 11. In a daring move, Samhwa leaps gracefully above Geum Ryong, preparing to strike him with his powerful third Chosik attack. Samhwa, deep in thought, acknowledges that this Chosik can be fatal for an ordinary person, but he is confident that Geum Ryong, unaffected by his own Chosik, will be able to handle it. With precision, Samhwa executes the final Chosik, named by Ryong Yi-chun, striking him from above. Geum Ryong analyzes the attack carefully in his mind. He concludes that it is a Chosik that utilizes the force of falling to calculate its landing location, causing significant damage around it while ensuring the user's safety. Curious about what would happen if the Chosik deviated from its intended location, Geum Ryong takes a risk and launches a counterattack against Samhwa. The ensuing clash leaves both combatants on the ground, with Sam Hwa severely injured. Trembling from the encounter, Sam Hwa ponders that Geum Ryong, the skilled young fighter, has caught him off guard. Geum Ryong now requests to be taught something called Gongbu. Struggling to respond, Sam Hwa hesitates. Meanwhile, Dorothy, who just returned to her resting spot and logged in, is surprised to find an unknown person with Geum Ryong. Startled, she screams, demanding an explanation for the situation. Inside the room, Dorothy questions them further, trying to understand the situation. Geum Ryong seems disappointed and says he cannot have a master. Dorothy is confused, and Sam Hwa finally introduces himself as a person from Gebang, the leader of the gang hoes, and a reliable information source. Dorothy is shocked to encounter an NPC from Gebang. Sam Hwa asks for her name, and after some hesitation, she introduces herself as Dorothy. Finding her name difficult to pronounce, Sam Hwa settles for calling her Little Do. He then proceeds to explain what happened before Dorothy logged in, recalling a thief that stole an item from a residence in Gebang City. Returning to their discussion, Geum Ryong restates that he cannot have a master, and Dorothy grows frustrated with his troublemaking character. Sam Hwa explains that despite their efforts, they cannot establish a master-disciple relationship. Geum Ryong mentions that he learned various chosiks from Sam Hwa, but cannot create them himself. Dorothy suggests waiting and planning their next move. Intrigued by Geum Ryong's presence among different Moonpa, Dorothy asks for a very interesting favor from Sam Hwa to search for the thief with a dumpling-like hairstyle. Chapter 12. As Dorothy and Geum Ryong venture to an old city named Gebang, they are joined by Sam Hwa, who begins narrating the city's history. He explains that Gebang used to be called Dongjil and was once considered the best city in the east of Junwon. The city's prosperity is due to a man-made canal that connected Diha and the Yangtze River, facilitating trade and development. Dorothy, familiar with the place's origins, recognizes its reference to a location in China. Sam Hwa further elaborates that Gebang submerged in water 7 times throughout history, hinting at a hidden long-linked quest. Geum Ryong is intrigued by the concept of controlling waters for transportation and how it resulted in a large city's creation. The conversation turns to the legend of a demon dragon that would cause Gebang to be submerged for the 9th time, signaling the city's end. Dorothy's fascination with treasures and the prospect of a regional dungeon heightens as she realizes the potential this sunken city held. However, Sam Hwa warns of aggressive monsters guarding these treasures. Despite Dorothy's attempts to persuade him to reveal an entrance to the dungeon, Sam Hwa refuses, considering the value of the information. Dorothy then inquires about their current destination, which turns out to be Gebang's main group. She wonders why Sam Hwa decides to bring them there. Then he explains that Gebang is originally a place where thieves cannot roam around freely. As they approach Gebang's main group, they immediately witness a commotion as guards are chasing someone on the rooftops. Dorothy and the person being pursued suddenly caught each other in eye contact. The chase escalates as Dorothy recognizes her and concludes that it is the same dumpling-haired girl she is looking for. Sam Hwa, infuriated, thinks that the guards are siding with the thief. Amid the chaos, Geum Ryong suddenly runs away, and Dorothy follows, leading to Sam Hwa's anger. During the escape, the thief tosses a poisonous object toward Dorothy and Geum Ryong, causing an impactful explosion. If Geum Ryong steps on those, the least he might end up with is an amputated limb. Luckily, Dorothy and her companions manage to survive. The dumpling-haired thief is seemingly acting like an NPC with different clothing from before. Dorothy thinks she is absurd for asking them to eat as if she didn't do anything wrong. Eventually, Dorothy becomes suspicious of the thief's true identity, and so she asks her about it, to which she proudly declares her name, Gepetto. Chapter 13. In an open balcony, Dorothy continues her solemn conversation with Gepetto. Dorothy first points out how the dumpling-haired girl stood out from the rest of the NPCs. Dorothy wonders aloud about Gepetto's name, expressing how challenging it is for Pyongins to say it accurately. Geum Ryong joins in, attempting to say the name but struggling as well. Dorothy, now serious, cuts to the main point and asks Gepetto directly if she is a human. Gepetto responds sarcastically because she found the question something stupid, wondering why Dorothy would even ask if she is indeed a human, much less a beast, although everything is already obvious considering her physique. This answer triggered Dorothy's anger and demanded an answer as to what happened to the money Gepetto stole from her. Gepetto continues to taunt Dorothy, revealing she used up all the money, much to Dorothy's frustration. Gepetto then attempts to calm her down by shoving a big lump of dumpling into her mouth, but instead of helping, it only makes Dorothy more irritated. With what Gepetto just did, Geum Ryong sees an opportunity to learn a chosik technique called Geum-na and asks Gepetto to demonstrate it. Gepetto obliges, once again shoving a dumpling into Dorothy's mouth to showcase the technique. Dorothy is exasperated with their actions but allows the demonstration to continue anyway. After witnessing the move, Geum Ryong observes the differences between the real-world technique and the one they are using in the game. Gepetto explains that the virtual version of the technique, Gongbu, cannot be fully grasped through mere observation. She says it requires personal experience and familiarity for the power to be properly utilized. Geum Ryong questions further, wanting to understand why Pyongins cannot use Mugong like Yongins and Muins. Gepetto challenges Dorothy's knowledge on the subject, causing Dorothy to sweat nervously as she struggles to explain. Dorothy feels even more frustrated when Gepetto confidently claims that she can explain the subject to Geum Ryong easily. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Sam Hwa is drinking alone at night when Master Man-bak approaches him to discuss a matter of great importance. Sam Hwa reflects on the encounter with a man, 2 women, and a young girl whose names he couldn't fully recall. Master Man-bak notices something off about the information and inquires about the man's appearance. Sam Hwa describes the man wearing plain black clothing and carrying a double-edged sword. Master Man-bak is intrigued by the man's failed attempt to learn Gongbu and reveals he knew the identity of the man, which he concludes to be Geum Ryong. Master Man-bak then mentions the legend of the Gibong's evil dragon and mine. Sam Hwa is puzzled by the reference to mine and the connection to the upcoming bloodbath in Gangho. But all the master says is that in order to figure everything out peacefully, when the time comes, Sam Hwa must pray from the bottom of his heart. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which recap you'd like to see next.